Everyone, welcome. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share. Priyank, can you just give me a confirmation if my screen is visible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. It should be visible in slideshow mode. Well, thank you so much, Priyank, Zoe, and team. For giving for kind of giving me the opportunity to come to you about smallholder. What I intend to do right now, and as a context, for the Agritech challenge, I wanted to just present about smallholders as we see it, from a very very high level, and look at the opportunities, that exist. These would be big bites that we look at right now. Kind of the conversation in detail. So I'm going to talk about any solution. I'm not going to, talk about what can be done. I'm just going to talk about possibilities and why we need to, take a stab at it and kind of solutions for the future, right? I mean, with that, let me kind of, you know, uh, let me kind of just set the context, right? I mean, as you look at agriculture, it's a statement today that everyone talks about. The world needs more innovation in agriculture, not for any other reason, but because of the fact that for future generations of humanity, we need to produce significantly more food, protecting natural resources. Now, why do we talk about this entire construct of producing more food? Um, as we look at as we take a lens and look at the future, by 2050, I mean, it is estimated that the world population is going to be around 10 billion people. Right, that's 3 billion more mouths to feed than where we are today. What that means is, despite all the conversations around wastage, around losses of food, there is going to be a need for 50% more food to come through, right? I mean, we will have to have more food, feed, and biofuel, for humanity to keep chugging along. And as we look at this big picture, we also see a significant trend. Now, as the world becomes more prosperous, and a key part about human progress is we're lifting more and more people out of poverty over the years, and as the world becomes more prosperous, the food habits will shift and we'll need more proteins coming in. I mean, there's a lot happening in this space world over, but I mean, that is where reality is. I mean, we probably need to feed a lot more people. Within today's reality, there are around 800 million people who go to bed every day hungry. Now that's a parameter that needs to shift. And as we look at 2050, that's a huge shift we want to drive. And reality is, we have harvest losses. We're talking about land losses. The total land available for agriculture is going down. And what that essentially also means is that per capita land available is also going down. So there is less land available for growing food for more people. And that's where the role of innovation comes in. I mean, when we look back 100 years, we used to do agriculture differently. Today we do it in a very distinctly different way, with the help of innovations. The future is going to be all about agri-tech, and it's all about additional new innovations coming in which enables agriculture. With that said, right, let me kind of introduce smallholders. I mean, from a very very high level perspective, and how is it fundamentally different from what we see world over from an agriculture standpoint. Now, if you look at the graph here, I mean, when you look at North or Central America, I mean, the land holding is phenomenally high. Average land holding per farmer comes to more than 117 hectares. 100, yeah. When you look at South America, it's close to around 74, 75 hectares. Europe is around 12.4. But as you come down to Asia, or as you look at Africa, I mean, the average landholding drops drastically. So the average landholding is around 1 hectare in Asia, and probably around 2.2 hectares across Africa. Now, what that means is, when you look at agriculture and what you can do, uh, it has to be very different from what you would do with a North American or a South American farmer. The second dimension is, you're talking of 550 million farmers worldwide, right? So if you look across Asia and Africa, there are close to 550 million farmers. A large chunk of them in Asia, I mean, close to 400 million. And if you look at India and Southeast Asia itself, I mean, anywhere between 220 to 230 million farmers are in this geography, and that's a phenomenal opportunity for technology to make an impact. These are growers who are responsible for feeding this population. So 80% of food production in developing countries are getting handled by smallholders. And as we have gone through the pandemic, I mean, the need for food system resilience, the need for enabling these growers to grow food sustainably, to have better yields, has become a lot more relevant. And then, as you talk about it, agriculture is anywhere between 12 to 15% across all these smallholder geographies. So what we are talking about over here is, I mean, if you look at Asia, I mean, you're talking about a $65 trillion economy at purchase power parity. Take a 10% cut out of it, you're talking of a 6 trillion opportunity. I mean, that's as big the size it is, and that size is today, without any of the innovations coming in. Now, if you're able to unlock value in this space, I mean, it creates, not only an opportunity to grow, but it also creates an opportunity to make a phenomenal impact to lives and livelihoods. And that's where, that's how we would want to, kind of frame it. So this is a land of opportunities. This is probably the final frontier for technology to come in and make a significant impact. You've seen the consumer side of life where technology has made a significant impact already with all the innovations coming in. Agriculture remains as a frontier that still needs to be conquered, and and with that statement, I probably transition into talking about a little about what kind of challenges do we face in smallholder farming. The first one, of course, is around limited productivity. Now, we're talking of 500 million farmers, so access to resources, access to inputs, credit, machinery, and labor is something that ails the sector. I mean, it ails agriculture. I mean, while there are innovative steps that have started to happen now, that remains an area of improvement across geographies, right? And there is significant opportunity in that space. The second dimension is agriculture know-how and practices. Um, Now, as we look at these growers, a lot of them have been growing foods, growing their crops, following traditional practices. I mean, these are knowledges which are hand-me-downs from the earlier generation, and that's what they're going in with. Uh, Different countries have made significant impact in trying to intervene and trying to bring in best practices, but still, it still remains a key area of opportunity for us to go out and impact. Today, I mean, in my experience over the last decade plus in working with smallholder farmers, when he faces a problem in the field, the first port of call for a smallholder farmer is his fellow farmer, where he tries to go and get insights on, I'm facing this problem, what do I do? The question that comes up today, and as we look at harnessing technology, is what can technology do to kind of change it, kind of provide a lot more reliable information, bringing together best practices from the world over. I just want to highlight that, not because it's important, but this is how you unlock value for these growers. The second dimension that we'll talk about is around limited return. Now, this is how we articulate it. I mean, different people can articulate it differently, but fundamentally, when we talk about limited return, they grow their produce, but their access to markets is very, very fragile. So, I mean, we have all heard about stories of tomato farmers in India, plowing their land off, or just giving their harvest away because they cannot get the right price at the agriculture market. So that's an area of opportunity where we can bring in reliability, price transparency is an area. I mean, if they get the best information around price that they can procure for their produce, they probably can take their produce to the right place, right, and get the right price. Low bargaining power for this set of farmers. I mean, limited storage options. I mean, when it comes to perishables, we know for sure that these options are very, very limited, and also know-how, right, and their ability to understand farming as a business and take the best out of it. So there's a huge opportunity on the return side of it, and there are ways that we can intervene, and technology can intervene and make it very, very reliable. The third dimension is around instability, and it's around what's happening in the world, and weather and climate and some of those dimensions are increasingly making its agriculture. Now, as we look at these three pillars or these three areas, we do get to see, we do very clearly identify technology has a role to play across all these three areas. And as we look at, what kind of crops can this impact to, and if I can, draw your attention to the graphs on the right, uh, rice and wheat and corn are probably some of the biggest crops which go in developing food security for this population, and these are areas where there can be significant impact. Now, that's the entire smallholder farming challenge that comes through. So if we have to make an impact for these growers, uh, we will have to solve this magic triangle of limited productivity, limited return, and instability, right? And you'll see this showing up even more starkly as Priyank and team talk about the Agritech challenge. Uh, Kind of moving on, right? And I just wanted to bring this entire aspect out. It's a little mathematical, but this is the core of agriculture. Uh, if we really have to, impact yield, there are three parts. There are three things at play, right? I mean, the first part is genetics. I mean, and that's where there's a lot of work world over that's happening on the inherent yield potential of seeds and chemistry. How can some of those things come together and create value? The second dimension is around environment, and environment plays a key role in enabling the yield output for the farmer. And the third dimension is around farming practices. Now, if we and it's something that we did at Bayer. I mean, we kind of mapped all the big decisions a grower makes over a growing season, and we kind of identify 40 pivotal decisions a grower makes. 40. It's not even one, two, or three. I mean, in a span of 3 to 4 months, depending on the crop, the grower goes about making 40 decisions on his crop, and that has an impact on his output. Now, how can we kind of frame this entire piece out, right, where yield gets impacted by the combination of genetics, environment, and practices? I mean, and we can see that in for sure in the US and also in parts of India. I mean, if we take a few examples. Now, when we look at the US national average for corn, it's around 175 bushels per acre, but a farmer can go as high as 542 bushels per acre. When we look at India corn, the average yield in India is around 2.5 tons. But I mean, in Bihar, a farmer can get as high as 10 tons per hectare. So there is a way where you bring in various parameters and kind of use that to impact it. And this is important because across these three areas, technology plays a phenomenal role in bringing it to life. The second dimension is, as we connect farmers to their local agriculture ecosystem, we can help them resolve their set challenges. And what we're trying to kind of encapsulate in this slide is there are various players, there are various people who are all invested behind the farmers, but everyone is doing their bits, by themselves. And the farmer has to access all of these aspects, one by one in cycle differently. At times he can, at times he cannot, depending on the situation that prevails. And as we look at solutions, we probably have to look at multiple solutions, multiple opportunities, where all of these either in isolation or in togetherness can come and create a positive impact for the growers. Kind of and here what we try and summarize is what are the challenges. Three big parts that I'll briefly touch on, right? As you look at digital infrastructure readiness and farmers savvy today, I guess the challenge for the entire sector is limited or unequal access to infrastructure, and limited digital literacy. That's there in the farming population, but there are opportunities too. I mean, there are grants, subsidies, funding that is coming through. There is a younger generation of farmers who are coming in who are savvy and who are adopting technology. Right? I mean, it's early stages, but there is an inflection coming very fast. The third aspect is agriculture, even in small geographies, is growing. That's a huge opportunity. And, to a community, and it kind of enables reach to a large number of growers. And the entire dimension of an online solution, working with an offline presence on ground, which creates opportunities to bring innovative solutions to these farmers. The second dimension is around marrying agronomic science and data science. Today, you know, it's in a place where the solutions probably are suboptimal because we don't really have a lot of data around agriculture. But as we look at the future, we do anticipate a lot of collaboration to happen across sectors, across countries, to kind of bring these dimensions together and try and figure out what works best with growers and try and scale those solutions up as we look ahead. The last dimension is, as you start looking at farmer-centric digital farming ecosystem, uh, too many islands of solutions. I mean, it's very, very fragmented. No integrated and comprehensive offering today, that exists across, and everyone is trying. And let me be, very, very candid over here. And there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of experimentation that's happening in the sector, but it still is at a very, very early stage. And a farmer doesn't see a comprehensive solution for him yet. What are the opportunities here? Collaborating, working together, platform to platform companies, and we see early shoots of that happening in the sector. And then also data sharing, steered by farmers, and what we can do for them. So broadly, as we look at the sector, I mean, this is how we kind of frame the challenges and the opportunities. And as we talk through the Agritech challenge, I would want to invite you to take a big look and big broad look at the sector. Innovation in smallholder farming is essential. It is going to shape the life of millions of people, depending on the success of what we're able to achieve. It also needs collaborated multi-stakeholder efforts. And as we look at the UNCDF effort, we'll see a lot of us coming together, trying to influence innovation in the sector. And I would kind of end it by saying, as we look at the Agritech challenge, it's a unique opportunity to shape the future. Please, all are welcome. And if there's any way that we can probably facilitate it, we are already there with UNCDF and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Rabo Foundation to kind of try and help build this entire piece up, right? So let me say that, and with that, let me pause. I think hopefully we're good on time, but Zoe, I mean, over to you.
No, great. Thank you so much for that, Arnab. And we are perfect on time, so don't worry about that. I think that was a well summarized presentation, and clearly the emphasis on the value that innovations can bring to smallholder farmers. I think was very evident from your presentation. Some of the gaps that you identified around market transparency, pricing transparency, as well as reliability, I think those are very valid gaps across emerging markets that we see. So thank you for highlighting those and sharing those insights. There are a few questions I think that we have from the audience, so maybe we can just take them up one by one.
Yeah.
Zoe, do you want to help with the questions, please?
Yes, absolutely. So the first question is from Arpita, who says, when comparing yields across regions or with aid of human interventions, has the variable of nutritional value of the crop also been taken into account?
No, that's a very good question, Arpita. So as we look at yield loss, at this point in time, we've not really
Sorry, I believe there's some issue with the connection at Arnab's end.
Yes. In that
We'll
case,
wait for him to join in. In the meantime, please, if you have any more questions, do post them in the Q&A tab. And once Arnab is back, he can respond to those as well. Thank you.
Yes, I think that there is currently one more question from Santosh, which is this challenge open for livestock livelihood startups as well? So briefly after this, we will give a little bit more information about the challenge and what kind of solutions we are looking for. We have identified 3 broad problem statements, and as long as your solution fits into one of those 3 areas, you may apply to the challenge. So later, when we go through the presentation, I think you'll be able to assess.
Hey, I'm sorry, I just got thrown out.
Excellent. We didn't hear your answer, Arnab, so if you would like to repeat your answer to the question, that would be great.
Hey, sure. I'm so sorry about it. I mean, something. I think something went wrong, and I got thrown out. Yeah. So I think if I'm not mistaken, the question was, as we compare yields across regions, have we considered the nutritional value of the crops? Do I recall the question correctly, Zoe?
Yes, the nutritional value of the crop.
Yes, I mean, so as we look at the nutritional value of crops today, I mean, they are kind of, kind of benchmark, right? So when you look at rice as a crop, I mean, it has, different kind of nutritional value depending on the type of rice that you pick up. And at this point in time, our ability to kind of impact that with all the traditional seeds and practices that we follow is kind of limited. So we only look at the absolute yields when we compare yields across geographies. I think our vision in the future is also to look at how can you kind of reinforce rice, and that's where the industry is moving towards, and it's working, and it's when it comes to certain specific crops like tomatoes, like peppers, we are seeing a lot of innovation come through in the ways which kind of reflect consumer preferences. I mean, today there are so many different types of tomatoes or peppers or cabbages available, which kind of reflect consumer preferences and consumer needs around nutritional values. So I think there's a lot of there is innovation happening on those fronts, but fundamentally when it comes to yield comparisons, we probably don't look at nutritional value. The focus largely is on absolute yield that comes through out of the crops. Hope that kind of answers your question.
Thank you so much, Arnab. There's a couple more questions. They are a little bit more targeted towards the particular Agritech challenge. So I will keep those questions to be answered at the end of our next presentation, which is going to be spearheaded by Priyank first, giving a little bit more context about that. So thank you so much, Arnab, for your presentation and for attending to the questions.